On another episode of Locked On Bulls. In today's episode, we'll be predicting what impact Zach LaVine has in the 2022-23 season. That, plus players are already reporting to Chicago. We'll get into all that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. That's Pat, the designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central. We are here today to discuss the 2022-23 season predictions for our very own Zach LaVine, the highest paid player in Chicago Bulls history officially. Pat, I'm going to turn this one right over to you. What do you want and need to see from Zach LaVine to improve on in this season now that he's a max player?
You got to take that step, right? I mean, let's be real. You don't expect Zach LaVine to not be the guy coming into this season, right? Like, and when I say the guy, it doesn't mean like, oh, every night, night in and night out, right? Like, there's not another option for him to go to. He has to put the team on his back every night. He has to take the game-winning shot. I don't think that that's the guy, but I when I look at Zach LaVine coming into this season, I need him to be that guy to me that takes on the, hey, not only am I going to be the scoring type leader on this team, which more than likely Zach will be just because of his ability to score the basketball, but hey, I want to see him be the vocal leader on this team. I want to see him be the voice of reason on this team. I want to see him be the voice of fire on this team, right? I want him to be the guy that his teammates look to, one of the guys at a minimum, that his teammates look to take their cues on how they're supposed to be playing. And I think that that's one thing that last season, even with DeMar, right, that as this team continued to go down and deal with injuries and things like that, there's always going to be that fixed point that they look at to take their cues from. And you couldn't look at DeMar to be a guy that you said, hey, we're going to play tougher defense in this one. you know what I'm saying? You had to look at DeMar for what he was. He's going to go out there. He's going to score a bucket. He's going to bring the fire, and he's going to try to outscore you to win these games. I think Zach LaVine needs to not only be the voice of reason on the offensive end in this game, but also on the defensive end, because we've seen, listen, we both talked about those moments, right, where Zach LaVine says, no, I'm guarding Bradley Beal. All of a sudden, the defensive intensity just rises. Like, wait a minute, what just happened? Why are we clamping like this?
And that's the thing with Zach LaVine. It truly is just effort, bro. Like, because when we see him go into these times and periods where he's just like, "Oh no, you're not finna score on me."
Yeah.
It's you watch him and you're like, "Hey man, wait, where's this player been?" And that's what even on Chicago Bulls Central, when I talked about Zach LaVine and what I wanted to see from him next season, it wasn't really offensively. And we'll talk about that. Yeah. But Zach LaVine's defensive rating last year was a 116. Now that's injury, knee injuries, whatever. Before that, it was 113. The lowest defensive rating he has ever had in his career was the 2019-2020 season, in which it was 110.4. Yeah. I've said this. I'm calling on Zach LaVine to get a defensive rating of 109 to 108. If he makes that type of leap with the offense that he already gives, with the efficiency that he gives when he's healthy, that's a player. Like, and I talked about this in the episode that you were out. Seeing Zach LaVine take a step leadership-wise. Being the vocal leader, you know, yes, I would love to see that. Not everyone who leads on the court is the vocal leader. Look at Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah. But I want to see Zach LaVine be more of that guy that it's a, hey, we're down by 8, watch me work.
No,
and not players actually just stand back and watch him work because they need to move without the ball. But I want to see him take on that load a little bit more. I want to see him have those duels where it's him going to battle with Jason Tatum, where Jason Tatum's going off and he's like, oh, man, you can't outscore me. I want to see that from Zach LaVine. I want to see more than that. And he was great in the clutch. He was in the top 15 of clutch points production last season, even while being hurt. So we know he has it in him. But I want to see the moments that we saw from DeMar DeRozan last season. I want to see more of those too. But I need to see some of those from Zach LaVine coming into the next season. That's what I want to see from him.
So I tweeted this out earlier, maybe last month, over on my own Twitter, and it popped off on Locked On Bulls with the retweet and stuff like that. But I said that my expectations for Zach LaVine this season are for his numbers to go up, not only because he got the big contract, but also because I want to see him continue to develop in the right direction the way that his career was the entire time. Right? Like I love how
huge trajectory upwards his whole career.
I love how all of a sudden, right, like everybody's just like, well, he was terrible last year. It's like he's gotten better every season except the one season where his body wouldn't allow him to get better. And I understand the injury fears, right? But I think here's the thing. What are your numbers that you want to see Zach LaVine hit this season that you say, okay, this justifies what we saw from you? I think for me, right, scoring takes an uptick because I think he's going to want to take on that load a little bit more. Plus, on top of that, right, like I've talked about this a lot, I think the take foul rule is going to affect a lot of people's scoring in
especially
the NBA.
People quick like LaVine.
Yeah, because Muzz are just going to be like, I could foul you or I'm going to just let you go past. So I think that you're talking about 30 points a game for Zach, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 48% shooting from the field. I've got him 40% from 3, 92% from the free throw line. That's what I want to see from Zach LaVine this year. Not to say that if he doesn't meet these numbers, right, it's a failure. If he's putting up 28, 29, 27 points a game, I'm not going to say that's a bad season, but I think I feel good about him being right around there because you saw, right, when you look at Zach, he has the ability to get to the bucket, score a lot of points in a quarter, and then I'm going to get my teammates involved.
Absolutely. So we always talk about, me and you, about the 50, 40, 90 mark in the NBA and what that really means, right? That's elite offensively. 50% shooting from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from free throw range. He did that almost in the season before last. He almost hit those numbers exactly. In 2020-21, 58 games played out of a 72-game season. He was 50% from the field, 41% from 3, and 84.9%. From those ranges. So he flirted with that. But I'm going to give you this. I want to ask you this. We talk about that 50, 40, 90 mark. What do you think the first 15 games of the season, Zach LaVine's averages were along that 50, 40, 90 mark?
First 15 games?
Yeah, because that was before the thumb injury. That's why I have that specific.
I would probably say he was around, because him and DeMar were dominating. I would probably say he was around 29 points a game. And 5 rebounds, probably 4 assists at that point because he was passing the ball.
Well, I mean, the average is shooting splits.
Shooting splits.
Yeah.
I don't know. What? Throw them numbers at me. I don't know.
Zach LaVine,
he was cooking.
First 15 games of the season before the thumb injury happened, Zach LaVine was a 55, 41, and 89% from free throw range player. That is elite offensive. When people got so caught up in like DeMar, who's averaging the most points, Zach LaVine actually was on pace to have his most efficient season last season and still ended up in the top 30 in the NBA as far as player efficiency. We know how he played after the knee injury. So Zach LaVine already was flirting with that. The fact of everything that we've heard from Zach and his camp, that he takes this contract as a huge thing of he needs to live up to that. He wants to show up and even extend his game even more. I think we're in for a hell of a season from Zach.
It's going to be interesting to see because I'll tell you what, that's the kind of thing that breaks players sometimes, right? I have to live up to this money. I have to live up to this paper. If I don't live up to this paper, I'm letting myself down. I'm letting the city down. I'm not proving it to myself. I want to see and that's why I'm kind of glad that he got the big money, because it's always interesting to see how people adjust to that, right? Remember, everybody in Chicago thought Jimmy Butler got paid and now he's not going to do that. And it's like, no, he got paid and he's going to continue to get paid because he's a really good basketball player and he can lead a team.
I mean, he did get a little Hollywood, but he still, that Hollywoodness did not slip his production on the court. That's the thing. When players get their money.
Kicking it with Mark Wahlberg, you going to get a little Hollywood, my boy?
Absolutely, bro. Every time I get my check from Locked On, I get a little Hollywood. So you know it is what it is.
Listen. Every time that Locked On check come through, all of a sudden the contacts come on. It's like, what's good, baby? What's going on? What you doing later today? It's my wife. I'm married. Don't get me in trouble. I can't see.
Oh man, but all jokes aside, like Zach LaVine, I think is poised to have a really, really big season this season, and he's going to be fully healthy. The knee is going to and I hate that people try to paint it as like Zach LaVine's had knee issues. He had the one knee issue, and it's not been a problem since his first season in Chicago.
Yeah.
So I trust that Zach is going to have a big season, and he's going to have an impact. He's going to make a step. But that vocal leadership, how important is that part to you in what Zach LaVine turns into, the vocal leadership?
You know what? I think that's just, and I don't think Zach's not vocal. I think you usually hear Zach talking on the court, but I think, right, like there's moments where I would like to see Zach get in there and do a lot of what DeMar does, right? Hey, listen, we got to be better here. Let's not do this. Usually when Zach pops off, it's because he's snapping at somebody.
Mainly the refs too. The refs didn't piss him off.
The refs, or I mean, last season, right? Like I think there was a when P. Will came back, or maybe it was early in the season, where there was a point where he was just out of position, and you could tell he had been out of position for a little while. And Zach like yelled at him to get to his spots and stuff like that. Like there's moments where like he pops off, and I would rather see it as one, follow my lead, but also, hey, listen, we need you here. You got to make this. And I'm not saying he doesn't do those things. It's just that I don't see them on the court, so maybe he's right. Like Derrick Rose legitimately didn't do those things. Like he was
outside of the one time he went off on Tyrus Thomas for calls and goaltend. If he would just let the ball, I'm always gonna remember that. That's such an obscure moment. But I remember Derrick. The way he looked at Tyrus Thomas, you were like, yeah, Tyrus is about to get up off this team.
Hey, it was Tyrus, and then James Johnson did it.
Yeah, that was late. That was much later in the career. But yeah, bro, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Bro, Derrick had 2 game winning or quarter-ending opportunities, and just had role players just destroy it for him. It's all bad out here.
But all right, let us know down below what do you guys hope to see and expectations for Zach LaVine as he heads into his first season on a massive max level contract, the highest in Chicago Bulls history. But next up, we're going to talk about players reporting to Chicago early. But before we do that, I got to talk to you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all your latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games that already passed. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Pat, last season we had, I think it was all but like 2 players report from training camp considerably early. Now we're still about 2 weeks away from training camp opening, but we do have Andre Drummond, Ayo Dosunmu, and who else is there? It is Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams is also there. And Vooch. Already reporting to Chicago before training camp. Now, you said in our pre-game meeting before we started streaming that pick and roll between Ayo and Andre Drummond. And all I'll say is this, bro. I hope so, because that could be a dangerous pick and roll. But go ahead.
I'm going to say this about it, right? And here's the tough thing. It could be between Ayo and Vooch as well, but that's more of a pick and pop. But it could be between Ayo and Vooch as well, because we don't have our starting point guard. But I don't think Bulls fans have watched enough tape on Andre Drummond to I think they think he's an ogre. I think they think he's Cristiano Felicio. And I want Bulls fans to really go watch how Andre Drummond moves. I'm not expecting him to be this offensive juggernaut. I'm not. I've got him slated for like 9 points a game, I think. But like 9, legit a 9-9 season. But when you talk about what his ability is, I don't want to see him shooting at all, but what his ability is off of the roll, off of the screen, right? How he's going to be able to open things up for guys, how he's going to be able to find his position in there. And remember, Andre Drummond can go up and get it. So, like, I really want Muggs to go back. I was watching some Andre Drummond tape the other day, and literally I was just like, bro, like, he could fit so well. Like,
if you just replace...
I'm excited about him. He could be talked about not in the same heights, but how we talked about DeMar as, wow, this is such a huge pickup for the Chicago Bulls.
I've said this. I think that even me, I have told myself accountable. I thought Andre Drummond was so much older than what he is. The kid is 29 years old. But on top of that,
the fact that you can call him the kid,
the fact that I'm embracing my old man, bro. You know, I wake up every morning now and find a new gray beard hair, and I'm just like, I'm embracing it. It is what it is at this point. I'll be the Adonis Haslam of Locked On. That's fine. I'm not even worried about it.
Oh, I love it, dog. I love it.
But the fact that I think people think that Andre Drummond's older than what he is. I think also people, like you said, think he's an ogre and he's not mobile. If you literally replace Andre Drummond with Tristan Thompson with Andre Drummond, you're easily looking at getting 8 more points per game than what Tristan Thompson gave you, and way more rebounds. And this is what I want to point out as well. I think people forget this or don't notice this. We always talk about how DeMar had the statistically the best season of his career last season, aging. Yeah. Andre Drummond, still only being 29, but being in the NBA 10 years, had the highest efficiency rating of his NBA career last season at 23.85. Also, his rebounding rate was the second highest of his career, considering the different role that he's playing. His assist rate, the highest of his career last season. We're talking about a player that has embraced the bench role, and it's made him a better player for it. Yeah, that's the type of player that I want coming off the bench for the Chicago Bulls every single time.
And I'm going to be real with you, right? Like, you look at it, right? Again, you got to go back to what the offseason was, and very similar to like the Bears are now, right? Like, we get into the season, it's like, okay, was the offseason actually successful? We're not going to see it until you're playing it out in season. But I just look at it and I'm like, there's an opportunity for us to be talking about Andre Drummond as, wow, what a key pickup. What a huge pickup for the Bulls. Because, right, you look at the teams around the East. I'm going to be real with you. As I look at the Eastern Conference, the Donovan Mitchells don't scare me. The DeJounte Murrays don't scare me. What scares me in the Eastern Conference is the Joel Embiids. And listen, Drummond's not stopping that. We've seen that. We've seen that one. The Joel Embiid scare me. I like the zoom in effect on this one. I don't know. Let it happen. Don't say it. The Giannis's and the Brook Lopez matchups, right? And Bobby Portis, the Jared Allen and Evan Mobley's. That's the part where I look at and I say, listen, the Bulls can be in the rebounding battle, but they have nobody that can stop those guys. When I look at Drummond being added to this team, right, I look at him as a guy who can stop those guys, who can slow down those guys outside of, let me roll it back. Who can slow down those guys. And then I think you have to say, hey, listen, there's going to be some sort of lineup of Drummond and Patrick Williams. That's probably going to be your defensive lineup. And I think that that's going to be really helpful to the Bulls this season going up against those guys like that have those twin tower effects.
Yeah, I mean, it allows the Bulls to play a more traditional lineup when necessary and not really lose much. Yeah, they lose shooting because he's not nearly the shooter Vooch is. But you look at a player that in the pick and roll can do a lot. If you have an elite point guard out there that can use him correctly, and hell, when Lonzo comes back, I'm looking at Andre Drummond like, I'm not saying he's going to have a 6 man of the year type effect or anything like, but I'm looking at it just saying, do you remember where that time period where Taj was off the bench and people were like, hey man, listen, this guy's really giving. And before his second, that was his second season. His rookie season, we were just looking at Taj like, dang, this pick that we did not expect much for is really giving us a lot. Yeah. Andre Drummond is going to have a hell of an effect for the Chicago Bulls. He's going to get us more possessions. He's going to allow us to have a lot more strength, not a little bit, a lot more strength against some of those big matchups. Like you said, not looking at him to shut anybody down, but in matchups where Vooch just got sometimes dog walk because he isn't the strongest defender. We now have Andre Drummond to be able to come in those situations and still give the Bulls a lot. And he's still a much more mobile player. Like when you talk about if the Bulls do get these extra possessions, if they do get turnovers, if they get out on the fast break, having Andre Drummond as the trail man, watch your heads, NBA, because I'm telling you, it's going to be a couple of lobs this season where we're like, Andre Drummond just killed somebody. And maybe not physically, but their spirit is gone from their body.
I think that's what gets me excited about these guys reporting so early, right? Because it's like, okay, how is this going to fit together? How is this going to work together? And the names that are there, right? Let's be real. The 3 names that are there, you could, I know you're against it, but you could absolutely at some point see it on the court at some point this season. Patrick Williams, all 4 names, honestly, Io, P. Will, Drummond, and Vooch. That could be a lineup for you. You throw a shooter in there, right? Like all of a sudden you're talking about okay, we want to still have the spacing on the floor, but we want to have the rebounding on the floor as well. We want to have like the fact that they're getting in here already and working on things, that always gets me excited for the season. And I don't think it's the fake fanfare, right? I don't think it's we got to do this. I think this team literally is like, we've got somebody new in here. We have to figure out how we work together. And that's long-term thinking. And I like that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like reporting early is never going to hurt anything. But when you look at like even the chemistry that the Bulls started off last season with, where we thought that it was going to take some time for them to at least to get it, not the fit overall. I never believed the fit concerns, but just may take some time for them to work it out. When you look at players coming in early and players like Ayo, players like Patrick Williams, players like Vooch, players like Andre Drummond, like those are the ones that you want to start building chemistry and you want to kind of fit in. And as other players come in, the fact that, you're going to have now Billy Donovan able to take a look at like what Andre Drummond's going to be like, it's a lot. And I love the position that we're in. I love that we have a team that also likes each other. I think sometimes that's overlooked as well. When you have a team that legitimately enjoys being around each other, the sum of the parts outweigh what you would think that you would get from them.
Let me ask you this before we switch topics, right?
Okay.
What are we thinking on minutes per game for Drummond? In Philly, I believe he was doing 15 minutes a game, 17 minutes a game, something like that. Right? Am I tweaking on that? No, he's about 20 minutes a game. 20 minutes a game in Philly. Where do you see him playing? Because I'll be honest with you, right? There's a lot of bigs, and Andre Drummond is a good defender. Like he's a career 100 defensive rating. He's a good defender. Where do you like? There's going to be a lot of games where you're going to have a big man on the other side that absolutely could be cooking Vooch. How many minutes per game are you seeing for Andre Drummond this year?
So last season, Tristan Thompson averaged 16.3 minutes per game for the Chicago Bulls.
That's wild because I feel like I didn't see him for 16 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. That's how quiet he was out there when he was on the court for the Chicago Bulls.
He averaged what?
He averaged 16.3 minutes per game for the Chicago Bulls last season.
He was just out there running and jumping. I didn't even see him.
And Nikola Vucevic
thought he averaged 7 minutes a game.
Nikola Vucevic averaged 33 minutes per game for the Chicago Bulls last season. So he's definitely going to get Tristan Thompson's minutes. I think you try to get Vooch closer to 31, 32 minutes per game. So, yeah, that's only a minute. So, I'm saying Andre Drummond's getting 18 to 19 minutes per game at least. Yeah. Maybe upwards, especially like certain matchups. And if you can unlock, like I don't think it, but I know you do think that Vooch and Drummond can play some together. If you can play them together, Drummond's easily getting 22 minutes per game. Easily.
I think the question, to me, the biggest thing is, right, is there that full-on switch? Because like similar to what they did in Philly, right? Because in Philly, there was that Joel Embiid was playing more of the minutes, and they're completely different players, but he's going to go out there, give you rebounding, and be able to get you putbacks.
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity where you could see the Bulls doing a legit, like, he's playing 22 to 24 minutes a game because we want Vooch to be more rested than the other.
Especially when you talk about the number of back-to-backs that we had, which we talked about yesterday. That could make it to where, you see these, especially you could see Andre Drummond get, what are you thinking? Games like on a back-to-back, especially if we're not playing a team that we're clearly going to beat. You can see him play 26 minutes in that game and see Vooch play 22 and sit down.
I could see him starting. I could see them being like, rest. Vooch, take a rest. This is a rest day for you. I think there's going to be a lot of rest days in here. Hey, I know we wasn't doing the comments, but this is hilarious. Steve-O said.
It's always Steve-O. Steve-O been on a streak, bro.
He said Tristan Thompson was out there just getting boxed out for 16 minutes.
Hey, that was never mind. I almost said something that could only be said on Chicago Bulls Central, so I'm just gonna shut up. I'm just gonna be quiet. That's hilarious.
Boxed out running up the court. Get out the way. Get out the way,
bro. If I don't know how often you see Steve-O over on your channel. Steve-O has been on a streak lately. Like, bro, Steve-O literally has said, "Hey, this offseason, I got y'all." Literally, Steve-O's been hilarious, bro. This whole offseason.
Steve-O put the offseason on his back, bro. Shout out to Steve. Right, he on both our channels.
You know what? Steve-O had a Dalen Terry type offseason this offseason, bro. Like, he's been working.
Dalen Terry offseason.
He's been working out
here. Shout out to Steve-O, man.
But all right, man. We gotta get ready to wrap up the show, man. Last topic for today, man. Michael Jordan jersey, a game-worn Michael Jordan jersey in the finals, sold for $10 million. It broke the record of sports memorabilia. So we've seen a lot of stuff. Wait, didn't Horace Grant sold his rings this off? We've seen a lot of stuff sold this offseason.
Like, I love how we hold this stuff so near and dear, and these mugs are like, hey, I got to buy a Lambo this weekend. I'm gonna just
exactly. You want these rings? Like
championship rings.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. But $10 million for a Jordan jersey, bro. What do you think about it?
I was surprised, right? Because it's the most for sports memorabilia ever. But how much did that last Brady ball go for? I thought that mug was up there too. Because remember, Buddy thought he bought the last football that Tom Brady had ever thrown.
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
On it, and then Brady came back like a week later. I mean, listen, I think the thing here is, right, it shows you how much of an impact Jordan had, not only on the NBA, but on NBA fans, on Jordan fans, right? I'm sure we'll be having these same conversations with Bron 20, 30 years down the road, but when he finally finishes his career, right? But I think the question that I have most is, how long does this last? Michael Jordan's last basketball game was 18 years ago. No.
Yeah. No, it was longer than that, bro.
What? No, 2000.
We're 2022. So, were you talking about? You're counting Wizards?
I'm counting Wizards. So, like his actual last, but even let's just say 90s, 1998. His last basketball game with the Bulls is in 1998. How long does this level of I'm willing to pay NFL contract to get your memorabilia in there? How long does that last? Because I feel like, right, we're not doing that with Magic no more. We're not doing that with Bill Russell no more. We're not doing that with rest in peace, Bill. We're not doing that with Wilt Chamberlain, stuff like that. Like, you're not getting those level of dollars for stuff like that. Like, how long does this go on?
Bro, I have no idea. Forever, bro. Like, it's never gonna stop. This is the song that never ends. As it goes on, like that's
he's that far. And listen, I do view him as I view GOAT as a different conversation in my book. Yeah. But for me, right, he would always be the first player I thought of when you bring up GOAT. But is he that leaps and bounds above everyone else that's ever played basketball that it'll never die?
Yes. As long as people still wear Jordans, it's never going to die.
That's crazy.
That's like, seriously, it's never going to die.
Easy. MC Hammer broke.
He said, this the ether. He still can't sell his house, though. Wow.
Bro, legitimately in the barbershop talk, just had this conversation yesterday. He finally dropped down, because originally the house was priced at $23 million, obvious reason.
Yeah.
He finally dropped the price on his house now, and I believe it's $14.9.
Wow, that's a considerable drop off. What we got to do is we got to keep waiting it out until where we can buy it and then turn it into the studio.
Bro, that's literally my goal in life, right? I'm not gonna lie to you. That's literally a goal of mine. But here's the thing: the reason he dropped it to 14.9, because it's an odd number, right? 14.9. Yeah. What's 14 plus 9? This man on games, bro. This man is on games, bro. This man is on games, bro. Mike's on games, bro. Michael Jordan is Terrell Owens with 6 championships. I love me some me. The crib is Jordan.
So the next time is going to be 12.11. The next drop that's what he's going to do?
Basically, bro.
That's
like,
crazy.
Honestly, literally in anything we can predict by the time we'll be able to buy this crib. Just based on, okay, what's the next thing that's going to add up to 23? What's the next thing that's going to add up to 23? I was cracking up at that because I was like, first off, if anybody's going to buy it, you got to put in another $2 million in renovations in them. Bro, that house hasn't been updated. First off, it's a compound, and it hasn't been updated since 98. That mug probably got that weird robot that was in like every 80s movie to just come out and just be
like in Rocky.
Your beer is ready, Mr. Jordan. Yeah,
hey,
Rocky,
that is hilarious, bro. That is hilarious, man. I'm gonna ask you this: do you ever think a current Bull, not a current necessarily on the team, but somebody who's actively playing for the Chicago Bulls, goes ahead and buys the house?
No. If anybody buys that house, it'll be a Chicago Bear.
That makes perfect sense.
And it would have to be a location wise, right? But also it would have to be if anybody's going to buy that house, it's going to be Justin Fields, because he turned into a elite quarterback and he got a $400 million contract.
Justin Fields moving into MJ's house. I can't wait till we talk about that headline. That's all I can say with that.
I would cry. I would just be like, we have a quarterback. And he's in Jordan's house. You got to win a Super Bowl first, though. Yeah, you got.
Yeah. Oh well.
Listen, you win a Super Bowl.
If you win a Super Bowl in Chicago, we haven't won one since '80. Like, come on, bro.
Hey, bro. Like, if Justin Fields ever wins a Super Bowl, that day every podcast is Locked On Bears. Like,
every. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Steve-O with another one. You gonna walk in and see that big 80-inch box TV?
Oh hell yeah! The one in the back. The back is bigger than the TV. Like you remember when people used to have to carve out holes in their wall so the TV, the back can fit in the TV and it can look like a flat screen?
Hey, bro, turn that mug on. That mug go.
Oh man, go ahead and sit this off, bro.
Hey man, follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. We're gonna have a ton of stuff coming out for y'all today. Follow us both on everything at Locked On Bulls. Appreciate y'all for showing love.
You can follow me at CEO Haize, at CEO Haize. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls and making us I doubt it's the first, but making us your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, go check it on Locked On NBA, where the Locked On experts break down all those latest news, rumors, and developments in the NBA in 30 minutes or less. You can find them wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. But for Pat, I'm Haize. This is Locked On Bulls. We out for the weekend. Peace, y'all.
Peace.